Coming into this present moment. In present moment, no anger. In present moment, no worry. Present moment, gratitude, forgiveness. Present moment, karma dissolves. Present moment, compassion for self, for others. Present moment, limitless. Present moment, love. So please imagine a small personal golden sun way above your crown. And as you feel its rays shining down golden light, as they enter Akasha above your crown, take a deep inhalation and carry that grace down the soul line to the Muladhara chakra. And pause, holding the inhalation. And then as you need to, exhale, continuing down the soul line to the very molten core of the earth where the breath pauses. And all that needs to be cleansed and purified and transformed is so. And then you inhale that cleansed energy back up the soul line through the layers of the earth, through the layers of the subtle body, back up to Akasha where you pause. And once again, as you feel grace descend, you exhale and that energy cascades around the aura, offering you healing, light, love, and protection. Once again, starting at Akasha, inhale grace down to the root chakra. Pause. Exhale to soul, to core of earth or the soul of earth. Pause. Inhale back up the soul line to Akasha. Pause. And again, as grace descends, the aura is cleansed. Do that on your own one more time, and then please bring the palms together in front of the heart. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karva Vahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavane. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, peace, peace, peace. May we practice together with vitality, with harmony, and in delight. So we're going to talk about what persistent pain patterns are. What's the PPP of DROPPP? and then we're going to practice the deep release. So what are these persistent pain patterns? Well, I actually want to start with pain. So drop is a method for alleviating what hurts, what blocks, what obstructs, what gets in our way. And pain happens on all levels of the system. I did a teaching quite a while back on the koshas, the layers of the system. It's discussed in the book. But from the yogic perspective, there are different layers or veils that are placed on our essential soul, our essential being, which is limitless love. And actually, these layers, these veils, they're not a bad thing. They're actually what allows us to have a human experience. But as we know, having a human experience can be a wonderful thing. It can also be a very painful thing. And when we have the human experience without the awareness that we are ultimately this soul, this unified beingness of pure love, without remembering and being aware of what we truly are, we identify with these other layers of our system, and we consider them to be our only reality. And if pain is our only reality, right, then life is very, very difficult. So I'm going to briefly talk about these layers, okay, these veils that are veiling our formless, limitless, eternal self, our soul. And these layers are called the spiritual layer or the psychic layer. That's a layer that we actually often aspire to. It's our intuitive self, it's our ability to see beyond the physical. And it can be quite wonderful. But actually, there can be pain in the psychic being as well. When we have awareness of the suffering of others, when we can see into the darkness in our world, there's pain there. And also, if we don't have the ability to traverse the psychic realm, we are prone, if you will, to attachments, for lack of a better word, of negative energies and negative entities. Okay, so there actually can be pain in the psychic realm. This is why sometimes these experiences can be scary when we have supernormal experiences or paranormal experiences. Even though this layer of our being is the closest one to our soul, it's like its outer edges that are connected to the next layer, which is called Manamaya Kosha, the layer of the mind, right? The mind can serve to help us organize our human experience and to understand it. It can mitigate pain but it can also be a source of pain. When our thoughts are repeatedly negative, self-effacing, self-debasing, judgmental, harsh, right? The mind creates pain. Taking it then to the next level, the mind is influenced by the emotional system, the vital system. Now, this system of our vitality, right? And emotion is energy in motion. It's our vitality, right? It reflects our vitality, let me say. So when this happens, that the mind has negative thoughts, that affects the emotional system. And the body gets all clenched up. I'm sorry, I'm moving into the physical. Let me just stay with the emotional system. It affects the emotional system. And so we have experiences of hopelessness, rage, frustration, helplessness, fear, anxiety. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Now, our vital system also can be the way in which we experience joy, delight, love, the positive emotions as well as the negative emotions. And the emotional system, of course, is very much connected to the physical system, the body. Now, we tend to misidentify things and we see ourselves or experience ourselves as a body first, as an emotional being second, as a mental being next, maybe as a psychic being, maybe we never even go that far, right? And then maybe as pure spirit. But in yoga, the truth is that we start as pure spirit. And as pure spirit gets veiled, right, we have these other systems that operate, and they can operate to elevate us, and they can also operate to hold us down, hold us back, hold us in, so to speak, take away our natural freedom of being. So the physical system, you know, it's meant to run beautifully and efficiently, and it's our vessel, it's our spacesuit that the being puts on in order to navigate this physical reality, which is really just an appearance, but that's a whole nother class that we'll be discussing some of at the transformational retreat. Okay. But the physical responds to the mental, to the emotional. And when the mind has a negative thought and there's an emotion of hopelessness or unworthiness, the body feels it, right? That's where it registers. And so it registers in the body so that anxiety, you know, we feel a fluttering in our chest. Anger, we feel a contraction and a wanting to just burst forth, right? This wanting to erupt and release what we're pushing down or what we feel is being foisted upon us. And so all this is felt and registered in the body. Technically, just out of interest, the first three layers, the bottom three layers, I really should say the outer three layers, the physical, the vital, the emotional, and the mental. These are the three that comprise our ego, and then the psychic somewhat, right? And so it's our ego self that experiences unpleasant situations and registers it in thought, judgment, in emotional frustration, anxiety, fear, hatred, jealousy, envy. And all of that registers in the physical body. Now, if the physical body is subjected to physical assault or pain, accident, assault by another, right? Then that registers up to, as well, into the emotional and the mental. So that we have an emotional experience around what's happened to us physically, and we have mental beliefs that we hold about it. So basically, nothing that happens to us in this physical world only happens at any one of these levels of being. So if we are emotionally abused or insulted, it registers, yes, in the vital system, but it also has some kind of registering, echoing in the physical and the mental, at least, maybe the psychic. Okay, but right now I'm talking about the three that comprise the egoic self, our ordinary everyday consciousness. And so when we experience an emotional trauma, right, that registers in the body, and it shows up, it reflects in the mind in various thoughts or beliefs that can become worldviews, right? No one is to be trusted. I am unworthy. I must deserve this. It's not my fault. Oh, it is my fault. Right. So all of these three work, they work, they affect one another, is what I want to say. I don't really want to say they work in sync, but they affect one another. So a physical pain affects the thought processes, the mental beliefs, and it affects the emotional experiences. And when something is held or gets lodged in, becomes persistent, maybe because we've experienced that pain many times, or maybe because it's just not going away, we don't know what to do with it, right? It gets stuck in all three layers, basically. Our body clenches when it gets, when we have physical pain, the body clenches, right? We contract. And when the body contracts, it actually creates more physical pain. When we're contracted like this, it affects our emotional system. Matter of fact, I'm all contracted like this. It's kind of hard for me to look up. It's almost like I'm looking down and there's a feeling of shame, right? Like I can't meet someone's eyes or someone else's being. Versus if I allow myself to open up, It's much easier to gaze at all of you all and see you as equals, right? So I'm sure that you understand what I'm talking about because we all have these kinds of experiences. And these experiences get stored in our body. They get stored in our emotional system. They affect how we react to, if we've been abused, mistreated, it's going to affect our emotional response, often even when we're not being abused or mistreated. If the body has been suddenly and severely injured, it can create a startle response, right? That anything that resembles that trauma creates a reaction, a response. And as well, the beliefs. So this is just a preface to trying to understand that we're working in drop primarily with those outer three layers. We're doing it, however, to begin with, through Reiki. And how does Reiki work? Well, Reiki starts at the soul level. It is the energy of the soul. It is the limitless love. And it penetrates through the psychic, through the mental, through the emotional, and into the physical. Okay. Which is very different than some types of treatments, right, that work primarily with the mental and working with memories, etc., or work primarily with the emotional or even the physical. So that's how we start. We do work in the other layers as we go. So this was my starting to talk about pain. What is pain, right? And I think you're getting the sense of how we can develop these patterns. These patterns get developed in our body mind. And when I say body mind, I'm talking about physical, emotional, and mental, right? And they get embedded so that they are part of our mind, but we're not necessarily consciously aware of these patterns, right? Because they're just what we are, they define us in some ways. They are part of what creates our values and how we interact with people and how we see the world. Like I said, our worldview. They affect our ability to our confidence in life, in ourselves, our ability to step into something new, our ability to have courage. They affect how we are in relationship, our willingness to be vulnerable, to trust, or our willingness to be comforted, held, loved. They can cause us to hold back from love when it is truly given and offered. They might make it difficult for us to discern when an offering of love or kindness is genuine. Now, these patterns then are part of our system. And in yoga, we understand them as this is part of our karmic system. Karma, the word, simply means action. It's that simple, actually. Um, but it's often thought of as cause and effect. And the understanding is something happens and then something else happens. Something happens outside of us, there's a reaction inside. There's a reaction on the physical level, the emotional level, and the mental level. When we have a reaction, it then it becomes an action, if you will. The reaction creates another action. Something happens, we react, and our reaction causes something else to happen. Maybe that's our withdrawal, our fear, because we feel afraid, our unwillingness to participate in something, our hesitancy when there's something that really feels important and we can't jump in or we can't stand up for ourselves. Right. So this is how we understand karma. Karmic patterns are called samskaras. And I love that word because actually samskara, that skara is the root of that word. And that is actually the root of the English word scar, to scar. And so a samskara is something that kind of scars or modifies our physical, mental, emotional system. It's like there's an imprint. These are actually called vasanas, the imprints. Our thoughts create imprints in our mind, create neural loops, etc. Our emotions create imprints in that this becomes a habitual emotion. You know that experience of you've typically been afraid in a certain situation. Another situation comes up where there's nothing to fear, but you still feel afraid. Proprioceptive conditioning. And of course, in our physical body. It's like there's a physical imprint. And these karmic patterns, they're created in this lifetime from our childhood experiences, right? And how our childhood experiences, how we react to our childhood experiences, and so then how they affect our experiences, as we develop, as we move through our developmental stages. It's like there's an echoing from those things that stick to us. Okay, I'll talk about that in a minute. Well, guess what? Not only that, we bring in karmic patterns, samskaras, from previous lifetimes. We don't necessarily bring in memory of what happened in a previous lifetime, but this is part of, the imprint of our being and when we come into this world, which is why we also do ancestral healing, why it's important. Because we bring in our past lifetime thing and we bring in cultural karma, ancestral karma. Now, karma isn't all bad, just like these the systems I'm talking about, they're certainly not all bad. Our physical body can be a place of joy. Our emotions can be a thing of joy. Our thoughts can be a thing of joy, bliss. That's what happens when we awaken and when we feel free of these karmic patterns that bind us. So we do come into the world with lots of good karma, right? And we can create good karma. And actually, there are 3 ways to neutralize our karma. And I'll talk about the importance of neutralizing karma in a minute, but especially in terms of neutralizing bad karma, right? Part of why we're incarnated, part of the reason all of us are here right now, today, is because we were given an opportunity, another round of go around the wheel to work through karma. And actually, all we really have to do is live our lives. Now, ideally, we want to live a good life and do good things, because if we do a lot of good things, they'll cancel out the bad things, right? That's how we think of it. But in yoga, the understanding is, by golly, you could live a zillion bad lives, so to speak. And some of us have. Um, Probably all of us have. But eventually, it will even out. Because eventually, as we learn, as we wisen, as we evolve, we become incapable of doing evil, if you will. And it kind of happens naturally. I'm sure you all know, I mean, I know so many people I've met in my lifetime that are like just such good human beings. I mean, just, like really ideal kind of people that don't have a spiritual belief, that don't belong to a religion, who haven't been seeking and practicing yoga for 40 years. It's just who they are. Well, they came in with a lot of cleared karma. Yeah. The rest of us, we get to work it out. So we work it out simply by living. And of course, we can work it out, the negative karma, by doing positive acts. But we don't want to get attached to that either, because that becomes part of the identity of being a do-gooder. Okay. And then the niftiest way of neutralizing karma is grace. Now, grace, however you define it, is the presence of the divine. And it's always, always available. It never isn't. Grace is the experience or the effulgence of what we already are. It is the limitless love. In the yogic tradition, the goddess Lakshmi, she's the goddess of abundance. And you always see her with an image of her here, like with one hand down, and out of this hand, golden coins are pouring down. Well, it's not just physical abundance, but it's the golden light of grace. When we do the Kali-Ki 4-part breath, and we picture that personal golden sun above and the grace showering in, we are cleansing karma. We're not stopping and psychoanalyzing it. We're not debating what's good or bad about us. We're not even thinking about that. Grace is pouring through because we're opening up and allowing it to. Similarly, when we say our Kali-Ki Reiki precepts in this present moment, no anger, no worry, karma dissolves. Now, it doesn't dissolve because we're stopping being angry or stopping being worried or stopping our thoughts. Karma dissolves because when we are truly in present moment, the one eternal, always fundamental, purna, fullness of being, actually there is no good or bad. There's only pure awareness, pure essence, that limitless love of the divine. And in those moments of presence, it all dissolves. Now we come back out of it and we start thinking again, or somebody yells at us or whatever, and we get re-triggered and what have you, until we really know that grace is always, always present. And all we need to do is breathe it in. Actually, we don't even need to do anything, and we don't even need to breathe it in. It is the very breath, the very love force of our being. So it's good to do good works, and we're less likely to feel the grace, the blessing of being in present moment if we're plotting how to confiscate somebody else's money or something like that. But it's always available to us, and it slices through karma just like that. So every time, and I'm sorry, what are the most important points, right? What is one of the most wonderful and most available ways of dissolving karma? Practicing Reiki. Because that's what Kali-Ki Reiki is. It's activation of the love force, of the divine grace. So every time you do a self-practice, every time you activate Reiki for someone else, anytime someone offers you Reiki, we talk about there's a healing. There's a healing for the receiver, there's a healing for the giver. What are we doing? We're just activating grace. And it cuts through karma. So that we don't necessarily have to spend years on the therapist's couch going through all the stuff. There's a huge usefulness to that as well, right? But this is a very crucial and necessary way for understanding that we are that. And this is one way. We have one way of dissolving these karmic patterns, these persistent pain patterns.